we say that energy and sustainability is too important a topic to have it only focused on the 22nd of October, which is the Global Day for World Energy Day. We have run up activities running up to the conference, this being one of them, and we are so delighted to have you join us today. And we do love an engaging audience, we do love an active audience, but we also love order. And so before we start, I would like us to quickly just take you through some of the housekeeping rules that we can stick by today. And we ask that you kindly mute yourself unless called upon. We also ask that if you want to ask a question, you can use the raise hand feature or also our chat. We do have a chat master who will be here to be able to point out your comment. We also have Q&A sessions, pockets of Q&A sessions during the roundtable. So you will be able to have your questions listened to by the speaker. My name is Liz Nyukuri. I'm an energy engineer here at Innovators and a member of the World Energy Day Secretariat. We are more than delighted to have you here today. And so why are we here? As mentioned, this is a run-up to the World Energy Day conference, and maybe just to give you a brief history of World Energy Day. Globally, it was first celebrated in 2012. However, in Kenya, it has been celebrated since 2016. Ever since 2016, we've had a series of annual great events, and we have ended up being such a movement for energy professional, environmental enthusiasts, and I would like to just highlight how 2020 was a unique conference. This was a conference that took place in the new era, what we are calling now the new normal, having the pandemic era. And we had so many activities. And we said World Energy Day is not just a one-day thing. We have several activities running up to the conference. And in 2020, we had the Youth Innovation Challenge that saw our winners being Kenyan-based, but composed of a Cameroonian, Ugandan, and a Zambian, and they had such an interesting project. We also had the inaugural Energy Professional Awards, the first of its kind in East Africa that sought to recognize the great efforts of leaders and impact drivers within the region. We also had 2020 bring up something more interesting. It gave birth to online webinars, and we dubbed them Roundtable, just like this one. We had 7 last year, and it was such an amazing sessions that brought forth different people in the energy space from all walks and all regions. And the World Energy Day conference was the first one to be virtual in the series that we've had, and it was great, had a global audience and great conversations. So what about 2021? We have, as I've mentioned, this is the 3rd roundtable, meaning we've had 2 so far. So we're already in high gear towards World Energy Day Conference 2021. And this year it is bigger and better. We promised to go regional, and this year World Energy Day Conference will be celebrated in Kampala, Uganda. And we do have several of them with us here today on the call, and we are more than excited to go to Kampala. As mentioned, we've already had 2 roundtables. In the first roundtable, we spoke about how can Africa, what are the emerging considerations that Africa can consider to align itself with the climate and energy pace of the globe. What are the steps that Africa can take to keep up with the global pace of the climate change world? In the second roundtable, we unpacked the World Energy Day conference theme. And this year, the theme is energy sustainability, unlocking the equation of water, energy, and climate change. We believe that there is need to harmonize these 3 aspects, that moving forward, we need to look at synergized projects that tackle both climate, energy, and food. And that was such an interesting roundtable. We had 2 speakers, one from the Water and Energy Food Program, the We for Food, funded by GIZ. And we also had a speaker from UNREEEA. And let me just pause and talk about UNREEEA. We said we are going regional, and we'll have the conference in Kampala. And with that, it calls for partnerships that go beyond the borders. And with this, the World Energy Day Secretariat in Kenya has partnered with such an interesting organization called UNREEEA. It stands for the Ugandan National Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Alliance. It has 3 E's in there, such an exciting organization that we've partnered with, and they're here with us today. And it's an alliance in Uganda that is really driving the sustainability agenda in Uganda. It has 5 member associations, from biogas to biomass to wind, and it's focused on the renewable agenda. And today we'll get to listen to one of the executive members at the end of the session who is going to wrap it up. So to our third roundtable today, what is our topic? We've already said that we spoke about climate change, we spoke about the theme. However, today we are speaking about something even more interesting. We are looking at financing of sustainability projects, or green financing. And we have a great speaker in line. She was supposed to be one of the speakers in the previous roundtable. She couldn't make it. However, the silver lining is that today we get to listen to her exclusively for a topic that she's so well versed. And before we continue, I would like to just have a feel of who we have in the audience. And I know I've rambled on and on, so maybe let us have a quick poll to see who we have in the audience. Thank you so much for those joining us. This is the third online energy professionals roundtable. And thank you, Ruth, for putting up the poll. We do have a poll here, and kindly do take your vote. It won't take more than a minute. And let us just see who we have on the call today. I see about 70% of us have voted. Let us keep on voting. And maybe we'll close in a bit, then share the results with you. A little more, for those who haven't voted, feel free to vote. Okay, we are close to 80% now. Okay, maybe Ruth, you can now share the results with us. And there we have it. 86% are from the energy industry. We have 5% from finance. We have environmentalists in the house. Interestingly, we have no one from academia or government. And I don't know, whoever was on the other, maybe you can tell us on the chat which sector you're on. Thank you so much, Ruth, for sharing the poll with us. Once again, welcome all to, apologies. Okay. Once again, welcome all to today's topic. As I mentioned, we are going to focus on green financing. And some interesting news, 2 days ago, it seems the window for us to act on climate change is closing. About 2 days ago, we got the news that there's a 40% chance that in the next 5 years, the average global temperature will rise above 1.5 degrees Celsius, above the pre-industrial level. If this doesn't get you psyched to join in on actions and policies and financing that are driven towards a greener future, I don't know what will. So today we have a speaker that I told you is so aligned with the topic today. She has over 10 years experience in the investment and finance space. She transitioned from banking, and now she's a climate finance consultant and expert. And she's here with us today. And if I were to start going over her bio, we might need more time than allocated to us today. And she has held different positions in projects that were specific to green financing. And recently, she was part of a team that developed the landscape to finance green in Kenya. They sought to seek data in Kenya that will encourage both the private and public sector to invest in clean and more resilient projects. She was also part of the Kenya Climate Innovation Center, where she helped map climate finance flows. And let me not continue talking about what she can do, because she is more than equipped. And not only is she technically adept in all things climate financing, she's also a passionate advocate for climate change. And right about now, I'd like to invite Lydia Mwithiga. I want to hand over the floor to you. We are more than eager to listen to what you have to tell us today.
Oh, so many thanks, Liz. I think that's a very good introduction. I feel humbled, and I am very excited to be the main presenter today in a topic that I'm very passionate about, which is finance, which I think if we are going to unlock anything in terms of managing our environment or managing the effects of climate change, then finance is the thing, is at the core of it. It's the enabler for us to be able to begin acting towards reducing the carbon emissions, to us being able to invest in renewable energy, which of course is going to contribute greatly to reducing the emissions within our country, around the world. So I'm going to share my slides. They're quite few, but I'll try my best to stick to the 20 minutes that I have been allocated. So just a moment. So are you able to see my slides?
Not yet, but just give it a moment or two. It should be able to come up.
Yeah, just a moment.
Yes, it's coming up.
Okay, so very well.
Great.
So today's presentation is about financing sustainability projects. So I'll go straight on to it. Just give it some moment. It's hanging.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. Okay, so there we are. That's the world we expect to be if we are going to finance renewable energy. So I'll start off by defining the main things that you're going to talk about today, and that's what is a sustainable project or a business. And a sustainable project or a business is a business that's able to address the 3 Ps. The 3 Ps are people, planet, and profits. What this means is that if you are going to be in a renewable project or any project that's supposed to address climate change, then it must have a positive impact on people, on the planet, that's the environment. It should not cause pollution. It should not cause an increase in the carbon emissions. And then over and above all that, that project or business must be able to be profitable. And why this is important, if a business or a project is in existence and it does not make profits, it means then it's not going to be sustainable. It means it's not going to be able to attract the kind of funding it requires, because funding requires that there'll be some sort of repayment or some sort of a return that is expected from the people who invest in it. Then I thought then it would be good that we define what is green finance, because today's topic is about financing sustainable projects, and green finance is the most appropriate type of financing for the renewables or any energy sustainable energy projects. So green finance refers to those initiatives taken by private or public agents. These are banks, governments, international organizations in developing, promoting, implementing, or supporting projects with sustainable impacts through financial instruments. And in this case, you're talking about they could be providing debt, equity, or grants in order to reduce carbon emissions or increase the climate resilience of those projects or businesses. So examples of where green finance can be used is in clean and renewable energy, energy efficiency, e-mobility. Of course, we all know this is the next big thing. Of course, in water and waste management, and sustainable agriculture, and many, many others. So what would be the types of green energy that can be able to attract this green finance? Of course, we have the wind power. This can be the large projects like we've seen the Turkana project that received a lot of funding and interest from the international finance institutions, but they can also be small scale kind of projects. So we don't have to think always about big. It's just about that project that is going to provide solutions to the people who most need it. Of course, we have the solar installations. We have the solar hydropower plants. We have biogas. We have, of course, energy efficiency systems. And in this case, we're talking about inverters, like the deep cycle batteries. We have to think about the cooling systems, the clean cooking stoves, heating systems, and the like. And then, of course, the e-mobility. So why I wanted us to look at this is knowing that today the audience, most of them are likely to be the youth, is when they think about green projects or energy projects, they don't need to think about the big things, and they don't need to think about just the usual kind of renewable energy projects that we've seen around. They can think about innovating around the energy systems. For example, there is so much need for us to be more innovative in terms of the kind of how we store the solar energy that is quite prevalent in Africa and in Kenya. So how can they be more innovative, develop batteries perhaps that are going to last longer, or perhaps will not need, if you have a project or you have a solar system within your house, you don't need to have so much storage where you're going to keep your batteries. Perhaps you just need to have a small shelf where you have only one battery instead of many. So when you think about those things, then that's what you need. When you think about renewable and clean energy, don't just think about the big things. You can also think about efficiency, how to create innovation around efficiency. Then what would be the characteristics of a sustainable or green energy project? Number one, for any project to qualify to be a green project, it must have the ability to cut carbon emissions. That's very key. The other thing is that it must be able to be scalable. And why this is very important, we all know that in Africa that majority of the population does not have access to energy. So that project, in that regard, then any project that somebody engages in or an innovation, it must be able to reach as many people as possible. And actually, that's very core if your project is going to be able to attract finance. Then, of course, I talked about this earlier, is that it must be financially viable. That means you must do some sort of planning or projections ahead of you starting off with your project, where you determine what kind of the cost the project is going to require. That will inform what kind of investments you go ahead. But more importantly is that how are you going then to make your revenues? Because those are the ones that will make your project be able to be sustainable. Then you must have obtained the relevant authorizations before you even proceed. we are talking about then the NEMA must have given the authority. If it's a large project that's going to affect communities, then of course you must have involved the communities where that project is going to be located. We've seen instances of projects having to be stalled or actually stopped because then the community felt that they were not involved when the feasibility studies were being carried out. So they are not even aware of how that project is going to affect them. So those are things that need to be tied way before a project takes off. Then you must have the technical experts to be able to manage that project. So there's no point of starting a project that requires huge capital outlays and then you don't have the kind of expertise, all the expertise. You might be the engineer yourself, but there are many other experts that you need to be within that project. So you must make sure they are within that, they are brought on board so that they are able to guide the project as it proceeds. Then of course, the project then should be able to use the modern technologies or must have then be one that is quite flexible enough that when new technologies do develop, that you're able just to plug into your existing project. Of course, this is very core again, because most of the renewable projects again require huge capital outlays. And so if your technology that you're using cannot then be able to plug in new technologies in it, it means then most of then the equipment might be rendered redundant. And then, of course, then you'd lose the money and the project is not able to continue or it becomes cost inefficient. So what are the main sources of green and sustainable finance? There are several sources, including your own family and friends who can be able to fund your projects, especially if it's small and you're just starting out. But the main ones, because in most instances, if you are doing a green project, then you want it to reach many people, which means then it requires more money. Also, most renewables, and you know this, require a lot of huge investments, especially in the initial years. So the main sources would be the investment funds. These we are talking about the private equity funds, who I think we have quite hundreds of them within Kenya. I'll show you a few of the examples. We have banks in Kenya and of course regionally. When we have the development banks, these are the international finance institutions. And then also we have government agencies here in our country. At least I do know a few of them that can be able to provide the kind of green finance. Then other sources are incubation centers and hubs. And also we have challenge funds. Now, I thought this was very cool because again, from our audience of youth today, who might have very good innovations in this green energy space, and perhaps then it would be more difficult for them to approach the more established financiers like the banks or the private equity funds. They can be able to get the kind of help within the incubation centers. We have like the Kenya Climate Innovation Center. They have an incubation and they are able to guide anyone with very innovative ideas, from just helping them to actualize those ideas. They provide the kind of technical support you need, the kind of licensing you need, and then the financial kind of support you need. I think they can have grants, I think up to 5 million Kenya shillings, and they help you develop those ideas until, and help you take them through the proof of concept until such a point that you're able to take them to the market and be able to attract funding from other institutions. Of course, then the challenge funds, like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and several others that you see within the media, again, they are able to provide the kind of funding that's able to take ideas all the way to market, and the funding usually will be in grant form, and they work with you as you develop those ideas. So examples of investment funds, especially for those people who have projects that are already ongoing, that are beyond proof of concept, and they require funds to have them take off. We have investment funds like the Kenya Climate Ventures, Oiko Credit, AGDev Core, we have Trine, we have Responsibilities, and several others. All these funds, I think, they would provide funding from the range of about 500 million shillings, or 500,000, all the way to about $5 million. They can be able to fund that. And in the instances where the project requires more funding, they're able to bring in other financing networks who they're able to co-invest in those projects. Then we have the banks in Kenya. We have KCB, Equity, CoBank, and Diamond Trust. This, especially KCB, we all know was accredited by the climate, by GCF last year as an institution that has green funds. So I know that if you walked into KCB today, you can be able to get funding for a green or renewable energy project. Equity Bank also. Then we have government agencies like ICDC. Again, they're able to fund your projects within Kenya, and I'm sure there are others. Then we have international development funds. Here we have the European Investment Bank, we have the African Bank, we have the French Development Bank. And these banks typically will not fund projects directly, unless they're those projects like the Turkana wind power project that require huge sums of investments. Ideally, these institutions will provide the kind of funding, their funds through banks or government agencies or the investment funds. So typically, you would not go to these banks. They will not fund a project unless it requires those huge sums of money. But nonetheless, it's good knowing about them so that you know what kind of financing that you have available. Then the instruments in this case are what kind of how do these financing partners, how do they invest in projects or in businesses? They will provide equity, and in this case, you mean that kind of finance that requires you to seed some of your equity or shareholding, so that then they can come into your business and finance it. Usually, the equity partners require that when they give you finance, that they also get a board position, a board of director position. And of course, then they are going to be involved in your strategy. So there are instances where if they feel that your strategy is not aligned to their strategy within your organization, then they are likely to ask that you change it slightly so that then they are both aligned. So it's very important when you're talking to equity providers that you know you're actually aligned in terms of strategy way before you sign the papers. Then we have debt. This would be, in layman's, would be the kind of loans you can get from banks or investment funds, and this would be senior debt. This is the debt that in the event that your business fails, you'd need to repay fast. The mezzanine means you can be able to get a loan, but with the caveat that it can be converted into equity into the future, or subordinated debt. This is just a kind of, just like a straight debt that you can walk into a bank and be able to get. Now, key thing about green financing is that most of the financing comes in concessional rates. It means it's the kind of interest rates charged are slightly below what would be a market rate, but that does not always hold. In most instances, it's still market, but most green finance is usually concessional rates, because even the funds, the institutions that are able to provide this kind of financing usually will get concessional kind of rates from the international finance institutions. Then we have grants, which I feel are the most appropriate for financing small renewable projects. because then you don't need to repay. And in most instances, when you are able to access a grant, the institution that gives you the grant is able to work with you at every milestone. So in the event there are problems within the project or the business, they're able to guide you around how to go around it. They're also able to help you go into the market. They're able to connect you to other to other financing networks, so which you're able then to be able to access maybe financing that will be under market rates or concessional rates. Then we have the credit guarantees. There are instances where, yes, you can walk into a bank, but you're not able, but a bank feels that the project or the business is too risky. So they become averse, or they're not too much willing to provide you the money. But there are credit guarantees even here in Kenya that, for example, there is one that was recently launched by the government of Kenya for supporting small and medium enterprises. So, and with this, the partnership means that if you walk into a bank today that is signed up with the government and has this credit guarantee, you're able to access finance, which ideally you'd not be able to access because you'd be considered as a risky business. Then, of course, the other option is leasing. This would be more or less like a product. But what this means is that if you want to undertake a project and you do not want to go for debt or equity, then there are leasing companies in Kenya, and I'm sure even in Uganda, that you can be able to approach. And what ideally they do is they buy the asset or they put their money within the project and you pay them monthly installments. And this, in some instances, actually in most instances also, it helps you to manage your cash flows, because then you don't have to worry about having a huge capital outlay. You just need to worry about the business of the project being able to make the monthly repayments. And at the end of it, then there is an option of you then owning the asset or being able to refinance that project, maybe to expand it or to bring in new technology. So this is another option that you can think about. And an example is Centum. They did lease their renewable project for the Two Rivers project. So this has been done. So it's another option for financing your project. So how do you choose a financing partner or project partners? And this also does apply when you are thinking about even other partners that you want to go into, to bring into your project, because I did see a few questions that were around this. So you have to think about what is the growth stage of your business. Is it a startup? Are you just at that idea stage? Are you just, you're beyond your idea stage, you have gone to the market, but you're really early stage, or your growth stage, you're more or less breaking even, or you're established, or you're mature. Each of these growth stage has a different financing need. So if you're a startup, perhaps the best place to go for financing would be your family or your friends, or an incubation center, or angel investors. These would ideally be those investors who do not put too much pressure on you. They just help you, again, work with you until such a time that your business is able to be viable. If you're early stage, then you can go to the banks. A few of them are going to fund you, but not as much as they would if you're on the growth or a mature stage. If you're on a mature stage, then it actually means financiers come to you. And I'm sure most of you have experienced this. If you did borrow from a banks, even as an individual, and you repaid your loan, the likelihood that you will have somebody calling you from the bank to ask you if you want more money to borrow, even when you don't need it, is very high. But before you ever borrowed from anyone, basically even a bank will not be very willing, because they consider you as a risk. So it's the same thing for businesses. As you go on to your growth stage, the more you're able to attract financier, and actually it comes to a point where you actually choose which financing partner you want to go with. Then the other thing is your size of the project. Is it small or large? So the thing is about most financiers and in most, particularly the investment funds, they will want to invest in your business when it's small, but with a caveat, they must be able to see the future. And in this case, they must be able to, the business must be able to demonstrate that it's able to be scaled. So if today you're providing access to renewables or cooking stove to 100 people, then they must be able to see, or your strategy, your projections must be able to show that you are looking to expand to provide or to sell about 1 million clean cooking stoves. So that's it. So, but of course, it's a smaller investment to begin with. So it, in most instances, it's quite attractive. Then a large project, of course, in most instances will be very attractive to financing institutions. So it's going to be upon you to look for those partners who are more inclined to the small projects. And of course, the larger ones are not, the ones that are willing to invest in a large project in most instances are not the same as the ones who are willing to sell. So you really must be able to do your research to get the right partners to bring on board. Then, of course, if you're going to attract equity investors, then you must be willing to seed out or seed or allocate some of your shares to the incoming investors. That means you must be willing to listen to other people in terms of them informing your strategy going forward. So if you are one person who believes in their project and you believe in what you're doing and you think you can make it, perhaps then taking an equity partner is not the right thing for you, then perhaps then you should go for that. Then of course, then if you are going to borrow or take a loan, then you must then be able to see that your project is able to repay the loan or the debt. Then the other thing is the level of technical and financial expertise. So is that financier or project partner you're bringing on board? What are they bringing to the table besides even the money? Most financiers, of course, are going to support, provide you the technical. They're able to help you maybe hire technical experts that you need within your project. They are able to provide you the financial management kind of training or capacity that you may need within your project or business. Then, of course, the core one is that, is this partner coming on board? Are they aligned to your business strategy? And then, of course, what kind of impact do they want to have? Or what do you as a project owner, what kind of impact do you want your project to have? Are you going to be increasing access of energy in the rural areas or in the urban areas? You must be very clear on what your strategy is, so that, and what your financing partner strategy is, so that you are sure beforehand that you are both aligned. So how can project players embed partnership in their green finance sourcing objectives? Now, you must seek, and I think I've already explained this, partners that have funded successfully implemented projects before. You want to go with a partner who has done this before, because then they have learned from their mistakes or from their successes, and it's then likely that they're going to transfer this experience into your project or business. Again, the partners must be able to bring on board technical expertise, and again, in some instances, they have access to more advanced technologies than perhaps the ones that you have locally. Again, this is very important because you might have very good ideas, but you don't know where to get the technology to implement your project, or perhaps a credibility of your source. So there are many partners then have, because they might not be, they might be international partners, then they are able to know who are the credible technology providers. So this is also very key. Then the most, again, financing partners are able not just to provide the finance you need, but they're also able to provide technical assistance. This will be in form of training, again, taking you to market and things like that. And then, of course, most financing partners have large networks of financiers. Like the private equity funds, in most instances, they partner to invest, to share the risk in projects. So again, that helps a lot with the execution of a project and just making sure that it's successful. So what are the pitfalls should you look out to when you're seeking funding partnership? Greenwashing. I hope you all know greenwashing. This is where people say that they want their project or business to be sustainable, but really what they end up doing are totally different things. That in this era we are in right now, people are quite aware of what is sustainable vis-a-vis what's not sustainable. So if you want to manage your brand or your project or your business so that it is known as a credible business, then of course, then you must be able to do what you said you do in terms of the project or business being sustainable, in terms of your products then being actually green when you mean they are green. What is the cost of funds? Again, this is very important. Are you going to afford, is your business or project going to afford to pay the interest rate? The kind of financing you're going to get, in what currency is it? Because this is very important. For example, if you're going to get funding in dollars to fund a project in Kenya or Uganda, then you must know that, and you sell your products or services in Kenya shillings, then you must know that there is that hidden cost of the currency or a currency risk, because then the currency usually would vary or over time for different reasons. So again, you should be able to negotiate either a lower cost for the funds, or perhaps then talk to your bank to see how you can be able to hedge against this risk so that you don't carry it all within your business. Then the tenor of the funds. Most renewable projects are usually long-term in nature. So you should then be looking for those partners that are able to provide long-term kind of finance. Here we're talking about 5 years all the way to 20 years. So depending with how long your project you think will take to be implemented. So of course, then if you're already selling products like the clean cooking stoves, then maybe you don't need such long-term funding. You might just go for that kind of funding you need as working capital. So when you need to expand, then maybe that's when you need just the money. So you don't need to go for a 20-year kind of financing. Then, of course, there is the inappropriate funding structures. You must be clear on what kind of finance is most suitable for your businesses. You might find some partners who want you to set up the SPV, a special private vehicle for you to be able to, that is going to be able to execute the project, or equity. Do you really need equity for your business, or do you need to have a special purpose vehicle to implement your project? So you have to be very clear on what you are and what is the most important, what kind of financing structure is most suitable to you and to your project. Then, of course, what are the legal requirements of the funding? Yeah. Then the taxation. So if you have a business in Kenya and also in Uganda, then you must know the different taxation regimes. Because, for example, in Kenya, and I'm sure you've seen the upcoming budgeting for this year, is that there's a proposal again to exempt the renewables and the clean energy kind of cooking stoves and other green energy products and services from paying VAT. But you find that the same things are going to attract taxes if you are going to have them within the East African region. So you must be very conversant on the kind of taxation regimes that is in your country and the other places where you're going to be selling your products or services. Then what is the core motivation of partners? Are they aligned to yours? Because in most instances, you might just be excited to receive the finance you need for the for your project, but if you don't know what your partners are most interested in, then you're likely not to be in agreement or aligned in the future, which may lead to a failure in the project. So you have to be very careful. Then, of course, the lack of proper expertise. If you don't have the right kind of experts within your project or business, then your business is likely not to move forward. So you must have the right people within the project or business. And then the reporting requirements. I put stars on this because this is very core. If you are going to attract green finance, then almost all the financiers, apart from banks now, I don't think they require that. You must have, they will require periodic kind of reporting. They want to know what kind of impact has your project had to the environment. That means you must be able to measure, for example, what are the carbon emissions? How many, if you said your project upfront that you're going to cut emissions by this number, then they'll want to know where are you at 3 months down the line. How many people have you been able to give access to green energy? How many people have you employed? How many people have you indirectly helped to increase their income? So you must be able to understand what those requirements are upfront, and then build within your organization or the project the kind of expertise that you need to do this reporting, because this is very important. Then just coming to an end, these are just some of the successful sustainable energy projects within East Africa. They are numerous. They are so numerous. I'm sure you even know more than I do. And of course, I just started with MCOPA, which is in Kenya, Uganda, and Nigeria. Again, this is a pay-as-you-go kind of, that's how they started off. So it's basically a platform that offers the underbanked customers access to renewable energy products and services. And to date, I think they have enabled over 1 million customers to access lighting and energy efficient equipment. Now, a question to you is that, would you think that MCOPA, is it a financier or is it a renewable energy company? I think this is a question that you need to answer because, and again, I thought this was very important because as you are thinking about developing a project, it might start off being one thing and ends up being another thing. And you perhaps end up thinking, actually, this is the most efficient way of doing it. So perhaps enabling people by providing the kind of finance they need to have to access the renewables, whether it's solar or it's hydros, whatever it is, perhaps that's the way, that's your contribution. So when you think about your contribution, it can be in so many forms. Because I think today MCOPA is more of a financier like any other than, yeah. Then we have the village energy in Uganda. I'm sure that people listening in from Uganda must know about this one. And they provide solar installation services and repairs to institutions and households. I think they've reached quite a good number of households in over 100 villages. Then we have another project at the Mara, which is Takamoto Balloon biogas technology. This is quite unique because it just uses a small balloon to convert, to get biogas, and it's very easy to install and quite flexible. And it can provide gas that's required in a household for 6 to 8 hours. So it's quite innovative and again, very easy for households to use it. Then of course we have the Talek Solar hybrid mini project. This again, it's also it's in Narok, and it's been able to connect households and schools within Narok that would ideally not have access to energy because they are not connected to the national grid, to be able to access energy for their homes, connect schools to have lighting, and just generally created a lot of impact within this community. So there are thousands of these projects, and being in your sector, I'm sure you already know quite a number of them. But I think what I wanted to highlight in these projects is that all these projects have been able to attract financing from multiple financials. And what is common with all of, at least the first three, is that all these projects are scalable. They are projects that are able to change the lives of many households. So most financiers will be looking for something like that. So because at the end of the day, they're looking to make money, and they're also looking to make huge impacts in people. So then I chose Talek also because I wanted to highlight the fact that the initiators of this project were able to approach the county government who donated land where the mini grid was constructed. And so when you're thinking about partners, sometimes they need not be bringing on board just the finance. They can also be providing something that ideally you would not be able to afford. And of course, cause to have a sense of community ownership that ideally would be very difficult for you to be able to have or to get, because then you may not have the blessings of the community. So partnerships like local communities is very important. So when you think about what partners to bring on board, don't think of just about the financing partners. Think about other partners that would help you get the kind of licensing that you may require for your project, the kind that will help you get the community support that you may need to sell your product or to set up your project. So there was this question, is that should energy professionals be advocates for inclusion of energy strategy in overall strategy by the C-suite? Yeah, the answer is yes, that as a professional, and research has shown this, that when there's ownership within the C-suite, and here we're talking about senior management and the board, when they do own a sustainability strategy, then the chances of it being able to get the kind of financing it requires, the attention it requires, and it's seen through to implementation is very high. So yes, so we should all advocate institutions, small and big, to be able to implement or take up sustainability and make them part of their day-to-day, the things they wake up to do, and just think about, is my strategy sustainable? How is it going to affect the environment? How is it going to affect the people that I'm serving? Yeah, and how is it going to be sustainable? Because then making money means there are people who get paid, there are suppliers who get paid, and so the ripple effects are very significant. So yes, we should all be advocates of sustainability in our own small and big ways. So I've come to the end of my presentation, but I just had a few questions. Is like, I have a few slides and that have some pictures, and I wanted to ask you, where would you like to live? Would you like to live, would this be your front yard, or is it to be a place that you like to walk in the evenings or in the morning? Or would you like to live in a flooded area or have a business that's flooded? Or wildfires like we've been seeing in the US and are likely to be. And so I am not sure what your answer is, but if you're like me, I'm sure this is where you'd want to live, or if you'd like this to be within your locality, a place where you walk, go take a walk and just clear your mind, or just breathing some fresh air. So if we all want to live here, like I do, then I think we must all be advocates or supporters of development of clean energy. And I think this is the right forum for you to think about this, because the future of Kenya, of Uganda, of the world truly relies on how we generate energy for the future, for our industries, for our homes. So you are the people who are in charge of where the world goes. Yes, with this. So that's the end of my presentation. So I welcome any questions.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Mwithiga. That was such an inspiring session today. And I love the call to action at the end where you're asking us that we really need to join in on the sustainability agenda. We really need to focus on actions that will lead us to a green future. And as energy professionals, we sometimes just focus innovation on just technology. But today you've clearly shown that innovation around financial models and business models is also something that will be a key driver to a greener future. So thank you so much. We had a couple of questions coming in via private chat, and now I'd like to open it up to the audience. If you do have questions, feel free to drop them on the chat or use the raise hand button. But meanwhile, the thing with online webinars is that we sit a lot. So maybe you can take this time to just stretch on your seat as we go into the next session of Q&A. And we had a couple of questions, and as the rest of the people drop them on the chat, maybe I can just pause on something before I read out what was privately chatted to me. You have spoken about the pitfalls in the energy sector, and I would like to just ask you on your opinion on what other financing models you think governments would adopt, especially on the utility-sized projects. Currently in Kenya, we are 90% renewable in terms of generation, yet our energy tariff is off the roof. We are still, I think, third in Africa at how high our tariff is. What do you think were the pitfall, and what do you think are the steps they would have taken in in adopting more innovative financial modeling to help us not be in the current state we are in? Back to you, Lydia.
Oh, thank you, Liz, for that question. I think that financing model for utilities was what's the best they would come up with at that particular point. It may, and I think to begin with, it worked, but as time has gone by, everyone knows that it's not the most efficient financing model. So I think I think there would be several and perhaps like the pay-as-you-go kind of financing model that perhaps then what the electrical regulatory authorities then can do is perhaps borrow a bit of the financing model and they can borrow a bit of it from the pay-as-you-go kind of financing model, and may have a hybrid with the current financing model, because I think each of them has an advantage over has an advantage that the other doesn't have. So perhaps having a hybrid of both of them is perhaps the most efficient one. And I would also like to encourage also the energy professionals also to make their own proposals also, because in instances when these models, people are developing them, you'll find that it will be a finance person like myself who is called upon to propose the model. And because I don't understand what the energy sector is, because maybe I'm just a banker or just an accountant and I don't have the expertise within this area, then I come up with a proposal that is best known to me but may not be workable for that sector. So the best thing to do is then have energy professionals also do make their own proposals, and then they're able to take them to the regulators and they're able for adoption, because they're on the ground, they understand how then the generation is done, they understand also what the market requires from them. So again, I may not have the best answer, but the answer lies also amongst the energy professionals. And yes, but I think a hybrid would be workable. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. You clearly said that we need to have more synergy between professionals and the finance sector. And I think that's what is key about today's roundtable. We are bringing both the energy side and the financing side together and have it as a melting pot of conversations. So we did, thank you so much for that. We had a couple of questions from the audience, and maybe I can just read them out to you. We had one from, oh, I think maybe he has dropped off, but how do you know the project is sustainable, and what are the key indicators of sustainable projects?
Again, you know, a project is sustainable if it meets the criteria I talked about before. Number one is that what kind of impact does it have to the people that it's serving? Is it a positive one or a negative one? If, for example, you're going to run a project or start a project that's going to affect how people live, then it means then it perhaps not going to be sustainable. What kind of impact does it have on the environment? If it's going to contribute more to emissions, or it means that you are likely to be digging up maybe trenches that are going to cause soil erosion, and you have no way of mending that, then again, it means it's not going to be sustainable. Then most important also for any project is that it must be able to make money. If you are not meeting your course, then it also means you're not going to be in business, or the project is not going to be successful. So for any project to be sustainable, then it must be able to meet those three criteria, and it must have a positive impact on people.
Okay, thank you so much for that. We'll now move on to the chat, where I see we have a question from Geoffrey Nyasimi. I don't know if you're there and you'd like to pose the question to her, or should I just read it out? Okay, if not, I'll just read it out. There's a question from Geoffrey who says, how can your organization help a solar company that deals on pay-as-you-go products raise finance for expansion?
How can I think it just would begin with the conversation of what kind of finance do you need, because then different kind of financiers have different requirements. So we could always have a chat. I'll leave my email address here. So in the event you want to get in touch with me, then we can have that discussion later, because then I would need to understand what your business is, how long it's been there, what kind of requirements you have. Basically, all organizations have different kind of financing needs. So again, the advice of where to go for the finance or the kind of help you need to be different from one business to another. So, but I'm happy to help. So I'll leave my email address on the chat.
Great. Thank you for that. Thank you for answering that question. And also to the people on the chat today, we do have a WhatsApp broadcast where you'll be able to get more and more information, such as the presentation she has and other links to some of the World Energy Day activities that we run. You're free to join and also follow our socials to keep up with some of these activities. We now move on to Jane Chege, who is asking a question to you, Lydia. For a country like Kenya, where at least most parts have the grid coverage, though unreliable, what does the future hold for renewable energy companies, energy mini grid companies? Sorry.
I don't think the coverage is as much as it should be. I know the government has plans to take grid energy everywhere in Kenya, but we all know it's a very expensive venture. So in as much as the government would want to reach every corner of this country, it is not going to be possible. And even if it does happen, it's not going to be in a very short while. So there is an opportunity for the mini grids to come on board. And I think you should not shy away from going ahead to have these, to develop your own project. Of course, it must get the necessary kind of licensing or authorization that you need to do that. But I think there's still a huge opportunity for the mini grids to projects to be effective or to work. So there's a space for it.
Thank you so much for handling that. Again, I'm seeing there are questions on how to access the presentation. We do have a broadcast that you can join in. And also if you follow our socials at World Energy Day Conference, you'll be able to have the link to this recording, to previous roundtables that we've had, and even future events. So please join the broadcast and also follow our socials, and you'll be able to get this information. There was a series of questions from Angeline Nambi. I see that she may, but before that, I see, I want to apologize for what I might do to this name. Yanis Siporidis. I've seen you raise.
Very good.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, I've seen you raise your hand. Do go ahead and pose your question to the speaker.
First of all, thank you for the presentation. It was really very thorough. For a financier, you really ventured into space that you couldn't be so well versed, and I'm very impressed. You know, you spoke like an engineer at times, so that's really very impressive. So it was good. But I have a question that is not really connected with your presentation. Financing means somebody makes a profit and somebody pays back and gets the money back. There are so many places and applications in Kenya where people cannot pay. So we need funding. Financing is good. Financing is associated with profit, but we need funding. How can we access funding for Kenya? I'm speaking for Kenya because I'm active in Kenya. I'm in Athens now in Greece, but I'm coming in 3 weeks and I can't wait to be there. But the thing is, how do we access funding? The question about the mini grids is great. We need mini grids, but the people who will be supplied power with mini grids, how are they going to pay? Pay as you go is a good option, but you have to pay in order to go. You know, I mean, I don't know Kenya as well as you do. I've been only coming there for 3 years, but we have to access funding. And I say we, I'm not saying you, I say we have to access funding because clean energy is the only way out of this situation that climate change has created. And Sub-Saharan Africa is paying the price for something it has not helped even a little to create. And yet it's suffering from climate change. So we need clean energy. That's a given. But clean energy costs. It's the cheapest form of technology, but still it costs in terms of money. It doesn't cost in terms of environment. It doesn't cost in terms of climate change. Maybe perhaps we can incorporate in our thinking the savings from the environment and from the climate into the price of the project and get funding from that. I'm just opening a conversation, perhaps better suited with a beer in the evening than in the morning, but I just wanted to give you this input. Thank you for listening to me, and I hope to see you all in a few weeks.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your inputs and feedback. I don't know, Lydia, would you like to respond? He claims that funding is the core problem that we have. Yes.
Yes, so thank you so much for that and for your contribution. Yes, I agree with you 100% that funding is actually, it's what? I don't know to call it the biggest barrier to financing renewables. I think that's the biggest barrier. But then you've seen all the conversations, including those for Kenya, the world around us, is that financing has to flow, especially to the developing world, countries, because then if any projects, especially the renewables, are going to take off, then there needs to be that funding. But I'll just point to you that from The project that I was involved in, where we were tracking the climate finance flows for both the public and private sector in Kenya, we found that over 80% of all the private financing in Kenya actually went to financing the renewables. However, that went to the large projects, the geothermals, the big, the wind power, like the Turkana, but then the small scale kind of project, those have not yet been able to access that financing. And yes, those innovating financing models, of course, are very critical. Like you're saying, if we can look at, can we pay partly for these projects for maybe the carbon emissions that we are able to cut? Can that be a funding model? So I agree, those are the kind of things that we need to think going forward. But I do know there is so much interest in continuing to fund renewables, and not just necessarily renewables, but clean energy within Kenya. And there are very many institutions willing to go this direction. So again, the challenge is to the energy professionals again, come to the table, bring these proposals, and then you go to the institutions that have the money and show them how you think that would be the best way to fund the renewables, especially the small scale kind of projects.
Thank you so much. Oh, I see you have you've raised your hand. Yeah, feel free to respond.
Yeah, that's a small remark. There are thousands of projects. I can you can make them as you go along. The projects are there. We really need to find a way to fund. We need to fund this effort, and not only Kenya, the whole of sub-Saharan Africa. I'll leave my details in the chat. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much for your contribution to this, such an interesting discussion on funding. And I see, thank you also for sharing your contact details on the chat. I see there are a couple more questions. Thank you, Edwin, for saying that we also need to focus on energy policy, energy and energy policies. This is why we have this roundtable. The conversation around energy and sustainability is too big an agenda to fit into one day. And this is why we have this roundtable. So continue bringing up these suggested topics that you would like to be featured in the next roundtables. This is not the last. We will have sessions to cover more and more topics. And we also do have, we do also do reports on these webinars. So you'll be able to capture all the questions that I see weren't able to be addressed on the private chat. And they will be able to be addressed within the report. So watch out for that. Feel free to join the broadcast and also follow our socials. And also Lydia has so well, and also for Lydia's presentation, we are going to share that as well. And so right now, I would like to pause and move on to another resource that is unique to Africa. This resource is so unique to Africa that it occupies 2/3 of the human population in the continent. We have dubbed this resource the future. We have called it, I like to call it the untapped reservoir of creativity and opportunity for change. I'm talking about the youth in Africa. And right about now, I'd like to bring on a program that is currently ongoing in Kenya called the Youth in Energy Empowerment Program. It's a program that has been running since January and currently has a group of 10 with the intention of, it consists of recent engineering graduates between 21 to 30. And the program seeks to equip them with the experience and skills that will help them be employable in the energy industry, as well as have the entrepreneurial mindset. We do have a gang, we're calling them a gang of 10. They're with us today on the call, and they have gone through the first session of the program, which was an in-house training. They have mentors, they went through holistic sessions. And the program doesn't only focus on the academic bit, it also seeks to have impact on existing industries. So in this second phase, they are on site currently. They are on different host sites in Kenya. And we do have this group with us today, and we'll have a great, we do have an opportunity to speak to one of them right about now. And as you have heard, we do have a partnership with UNREEEA in Uganda, and our dream is to have the YEEP program, as we're calling it, the YEEP program expand beyond Kenya. and go to Uganda and even African-wide. And we cannot wait, as this is the first cohort, we cannot wait to see how it will develop and evolve. And so as we speak about thank you so much. To learn more about this program, I think we'll have our tech support post the link to the website, and you'll be able to keep up with the YEEP program and how we do have webinars, we do have videos on them, we do have reporting on what they're doing currently. And even right now, we get to have a quick chat with one of them. His name is Albert Kibiwott. He's an electrical and electronic engineering graduate. And he is here with us today, and he does believe in the youth being the answer to bringing sustainability agenda in Kenya, to driving it. And he is very passionate about all things renewable. And right about now, Albert, if you're able to hear me, could you just speak to the people and tell us why you think as a continent, we need to focus and invest on the youth more in onboarding them to the sustainability agenda?
Thank you, Liz. Indeed, as you have said, that the youth need to be included in these projects in stimulating growth and sustainability in the region, because as we look, the youth constitute the biggest percentage of the population, especially in Africa. And I'm drawing this from the reports from the African Development Banks that the youth alone make up over 60% of the population, and this population is still rising. So from this, we can see that this population should be capitalized in, and they should be regarded as the current and the future assets if we are to move forward. So I believe that the youth should be put at the center of all these efforts. And by doing so, the government and the international agencies can be able to realize the goals, especially the sustainable development goals that we are talking about today.
Thank you so much, Albert, for your input in that and why we really need to focus on the youth. I see there's still a lot of comment on the chat. Feel free. We are going to put all this in the report and be able to address them there. And maybe I've talked a bit about the YEEP program, but maybe you can just give us a brief description of how the experience has been so far.
Yeah, for sure. The YEEP program has been an incredible and great learning experience. As the first cohort of this program, we've been privileged to get the energy audit and energy management knowledge and experience. And this experience is key in developing our careers and the entrepreneurship skills, especially in the energy space, as most of us are coming in that field. And besides that, this program has come up with not only the technical training aspects, but also the essential life skills aspects. So with this, we can be able to get to learn even about how we can overcome the challenges that the youth are experiencing in our daily day-to-day activities. So to me, the YEEP program has been a great addition to my professional development, and I can only wait to experience more and more in this program.
Thank you so much, Albert, for that. And maybe you can just move on to something else, which would be, it looks like it should almost be a no-brainer to have the youth onboarded onto the sustainability agenda. What would you say, in your opinion, are some of the challenges that are preventing this move?
I can say, especially to the Kenyan point of view, or even the African point of view generally, unemployment is one of the significant challenges that is facing the youth today. And I can attribute this to the lack of that quality education and required professional experience, especially among the youth. So especially now, you'll find that many of the graduates who are graduating from the colleges and they're moving out to the field, there is that wide gap between the education and the job market. So you'll find that most of these youth are engaging themselves in the informal sectors, which we know it is so unstable, and the income levels in that sector is so low. So this is becoming a great challenge to the youth, even as they have many innovative ideas and creative ideas, but they cannot be able to put into practice because they lack that exposure. And besides that, also I can say that the youth, most of the youth are not aware of these sustainable projects and the financing mechanisms. And especially in the sub-Saharan Africa, where we are experiencing some changes in technological areas, social, economic, and environmental, many of these youths are left out in this project. So this is becoming a challenge, actually, which should be addressed.
Thank you so much for that. And you've already mentioned the challenges. Maybe you can just move on and mention what you think would be the solutions around it. What do you think are the solutions that the people here can learn, the continent, the necessary stakeholders can, the necessary steps they need to take to onboard the youth onto this agenda?
And sure, we need to take up the challenge and overcome these problems. And I can say one of the first ways we can do this is as youth, as even most of the audience today are youth. We should take up the challenge and develop innovative ways of overcoming these problems. And with programs such as the YEEP programs and the collaborations between the training institutions and the industries, we can be able to get the professional expertise and that knowledge to be able to come up with these ideas and implement them. And as you have mentioned, that the YEEP program is planning to expand to other areas, especially in Africa, Uganda. This is coming at a right time when the youth need this kind of an experience, as I've said, to implement their innovative ideas. So as the previous speakers also have mentioned, that there is the ongoing incubation centers and the hubs. These centers are very key because from this we can be able to create awareness among the youth. The youth can be able to know the skill sets that are required to be able to fully implement these projects. They can be able to know the funding mechanisms that are available and how to maneuver to get these funds. Because for sure, as we can see, these funds are available, but the youth might not be knowing how to go about in getting them. And the government also has a key role that they can play in helping these youth to overcome these challenges. We've seen before there have been some programs that are geared towards helping the youth, but these programs are not, I cannot say they are enough. There need to be more and more of these programs, more and more grants that are given to the youth, and the loans that are available from the various financials should be affordable and customized to fit the youth category. Because you'll find that most of the renewable projects or the sustainable projects that the youth would want to implement, at first they might require a high level of capital, which most of the youth might not afford. So if we have a good way of, or a favorable way of financing these projects, then this can be a good way of helping the youth in this. And you see, if one youth can take up this funding and establish a project, that one project itself can employ many other youth. And if we do this in many regions around, then we shall be creating millions and millions of jobs among the youth. So besides that, also, I think there is need for more capacity building among the youth, and especially on the technical areas, so that we can be having this knowledge and ideas to bring the different creative and innovative ideas that we have into light. So yeah, I think those are some of the solutions that we can undertake to overcome this.
Thank you so much, Albert, for that chat that we've had. Thank you for bringing forth. It's always nice to hear it from the horse's mouth and what they think are some of the challenges and solutions that we can take up. World Energy Day is big on the youth. We believe that they have the potential change makers of today, that they can be actual doers now. But something that still keeps coming up, and even Yanis had mentioned, was on funding. And maybe I can just bring it up to Lydia. For the youth, what awareness around funding seems to be on the low? Where, if you were to direct someone, a youth right now, who has an innovative solution, where would you direct them to gain knowledge and to know about existing funding?
Okay, thank you for that. Yes, and I can't agree more that the youth, yes, the biggest barrier or hindrance to them going into the energy space or being innovative is just the financing bit. So I think the first place, and I'm not trying to market them, that you can go if you have very good innovations, is Kenya Climate Innovation Center. They will work with you just from the idea state. Just try to refine your idea. Try to help you come up with the models of how those ideas can be actually actualized. Develop the product or the service that you require, and work with you all the way until you can launch that product to the market. And thereafter, then you are able to graduate and have access to now other financiers who perhaps want an idea when it's gone to the market and they want to finance it, because then again, that's a different set of finances. So besides that, and the youth, as we know them, you're very tech savvy. There's so much information on the internet about financiers. And it's possible just by you looking through, you just need to type in what kind of financier you're looking for, and you have a whole range of them, and then you can be able to get or look at those that seem to be quite aligned. But I think in Kenya, there are several hubs that you can look out to, and you can also look out to several, I think there are quite a number of challenges that will be launched in the media, on the internet, when they're looking out for fresh ideas. Yeah, fresh ideas. Like there is one I know also that's again run by KCIC. It's called Climate Pad. And there are quite a number. You just need to be on the lookout. When you're looking through your Instagram, just go on the internet and search for these things. You'll find quite a number of them that are localized and looking for those innovations. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lydia, for that response. And I think the youth here have heard, and also anyone who's in the entrepreneurial space and looking for this funding has also heard. The chat is on fire on everything solar energy, a legal framework around sustainable energy needs. And luckily, this is just, it's great. We are having this conversation and we will be able to incorporate it in future roundtables. There seem to be a hunger for mini grids, the topic mini grids, solar policies and legal framework. We've captured this and we thank you for that discussion. We'll be able to incorporate it in future roundtables. So be on the lookout for our future activities. Join the broadcast, follow our socials to keep up with upcoming events. And now I'd just like to pause and talk about our partner. We say this year we are going regional, and we have partnered with UNREEEA, the Uganda National Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Alliance. And then they are in the call today, and we are very excited to have a partnership with them because they are in the thick of advancing the sustainability agenda in Uganda. And we look to expand some of these programs into Uganda and even go Africa-wide, such as the YEEP program. So even look out for the next, some of the next roundtables will be Ugandan-based, and the members from the UNREEEA Association would grace these events. So right about now, I'd like to invite Mr. Daniel Marlone, who is an executive member of UNREEEA, to just give us some few closing remarks. Dan, if you're there, I hand over the floor to you.
Hello, Liz.
Hi. Hi, Dan. It seems there might be a technical hitch on his side.
Yes, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, now you're back. Now you're back. Maybe you can just start off. You might have dropped off a bit.
Is my audio on?
Yes, yes, it is.
Oh, I think I have a problem with the network, so
Okay.
I don't want to compromise whatever I wanted to share. So for now, I'll keep the video out.
Okay, okay, that's fine.
Otherwise, good morning, everybody, and I want to thank the organizers of this World Energy Day 2021 Energy Professionals Online Roundtable. As Liz could have told you, my name is Dan Marlone. I'm a member of the UNREEEA, Uganda National Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Alliance, which is an umbrella organization having under it a number of members. Hydropower is among them. We have the Hydropower Association, we have the biogas, we have the biomass, energy efficiency, wind energy, and of course, energy auditors, among others. So I'm particularly also excited to have been extended this invitation to participate in this roundtable this year. I had a number of other commitments, but I think I just deliberately wanted to cross them out so that I can be part of this wonderful occasion. I'm glad that I've been able to listen in from the beginning, all the presentation of Lydia up to the end, and the questions I followed, and all the discussion, all the discussion that happened right from the beginning up to the end. So I'm really very grateful. Briefly, I've been participating in International Hydropower Association because I'm a member of the Hydropower Association of Uganda, and also having another project called HYPOSO, funded by the EU. HYPOSO is hydropower solutions for emerging and developing countries. So it targets 5 countries. In Africa, we have only 2, Cameroon and Uganda, and the other 3 are in Latin America. So I happen to be the project manager for that project under the EU in Uganda, the HYPOSO project. But during my time with the HYPOSO project, I saw hydropower solutions. I've also participated in International Hydropower Association Governing Council for the Hydropower Sustainability Assessment Protocol. Now that sustainability is talking about having projects that are really sustainable. Just like Madame Lydia was sharing, we can't talk about green funding when the projects are not being sustainable. So that's what I've learned from there, that sustainability is very, very important whenever we're trying to develop renewable energy projects. She mentioned, of course, the small ones, but she said we could also think of the big ones. But you know, sometimes big, for example, in my sector, the big hydropower projects are not considered to be sustainable. I think because of the ecological, the environmental issues that go with them. But there are so many small projects that are sustainable. And just like Lydia was encouraging us, you can't think of a renewable energy and you go in for funding where the energy, rather the project is not going to be sustainable. Briefly, I also had my 12-year tenure with the Electricity Regulatory Authority, the regulator in Uganda. And at one time, ERA partnered with the National Forestry Authority, and they went around to plant over 2 hectares of trees in the River Nile catchment area, because River Nile is the place where all the biggest hydropower projects are located. So we couldn't be talking about developing hydropower projects without thinking about the environment. So we thought we have always been taking that as very, very key and very important. And so 2 hectares of forest cover was just a start. And in Uganda, we take that very serious. Every time we're talking about developing of renewable energy projects, sustainability comes in first. I just wanted to think about something. There was an idea that somebody talked about one time, that our youths especially going to look for financing for sustainable projects. But renewable energy projects like under the biomass, for example, they are suffering one thing. When, for example, you're talking about developing briquettes, you're talking about charcoal, but at the back of the charcoal, we hardly remember that there are trees that are being cut. And of course, for some funders and some financing institutions, when they think about that, they come in slow. Should we just go in for the finances to make briquettes and serve the people? Or do we think about where the trees are coming from that are making those briquettes? How much forest cover are you depleting to be able to make those bricks and briquettes and improve your biogas business or biomass business? Where is the funding coming from? What is the effect of that funding? So while we're talking about developing renewable energy projects, we should also think about our effect on the environment. And finally, I think I also thought it is important as we talk about sustainable, financing sustainability projects, we shouldn't leave out thinking about the sustainable development goals, because any project that doesn't put in mind sustainable development goals, then that project is likely not to be funded. So I think should be our starting point, our bottom line, that as we develop our project proposals, we think about or keep in mind at the back of our mind the sustainable development goals from one to the last, and how are they going to be effective in our enterprises. So on that note, I just want again, on behalf of the board and the management of the Uganda National Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Alliance, UNREEEA, take this opportunity to thank the organizers of this roundtable meeting. I want to thank particularly our partners, the e-innovators, and of course, the presenters, Madame Lydia. She was very articulate. She brought out all the ideas. Madame Liz, of course, she has been very, very energetic as our MC. I really want to appreciate that so much. I just wish, like I saw on the notice that this is the roundtable is coming to Uganda. Of course, we're talking about the East African Community Partnership or Cooperation. I would rather
Hi, Daniel. It seems you might have been cut off towards the
wish
end.
when I'm looking at the number of participants, okay, about 50 participants, we had our, just like Lisa has mentioned, we hope next time it's going to be much better. So without further ado, I just want to appreciate you making us part of the partnership. And I believe and pray that like Lydia kept on saying, scalable, we scale this partnership to greater heights. I want to thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Daniel, for your such valuable closing remarks. These are the kind of people we are partnering with. We are very excited to move to have the conference in Uganda, and even before then, the activities in the run-up, to also include them and even expand some of our activities that we are doing currently in Kenya. As you have seen, Uganda is also on the roadmap to green energy. It's something, he reminds me of something Patrick Mulindo, who was one of our speakers, a UNREEEA executive member, who asked us, are we stewards of our resources? And he has brought that up by talking about the biomass and the briquettes, and as much as we are dealing with sustainable energy, how are we corresponding it back to the climate agenda? So thank you so much, Mr. Daniel, for your wise words today. We look forward to having more and more sessions with UNREEEA. And now this brings me to almost the end. I would like to just, we've been talking about green financing. And what better way to end it than bring to your attention an innovation call that is currently out from the GIZ We for Food program. And maybe just about now, the tech support can post this link on the chat. There is a call out that seeks to fund climate-friendly and resilient efforts within East Africa. And there are different themes around it, from digital solutions to agriculture-based to gender. It's such an interesting innovation call, and maybe this can be something that the innovators in the house and entrepreneurs would like to see through. GIZ is also one of our partners. We partner with them with our YEEP program, and even previously, we partnered with them in the previous conference. So feel free to check out this link. And it seems we needed more and more time. There was the discussions. The discussions were really interesting, and the good thing, we'll do have a report around this, and we do have our socials, and it's still not the last roundtable. We still have future discussions. So we want to thank you so much for finding the time to join us today. A big thank you to our speaker, Mrs. Lydia, who has she has truly delivered for those who thirsted and hungered to know what would be the success factors that people can look at, can adopt in order to have green investment and green financing Africa bound. So thank you so much for joining us today. We feel free to join our broadcast so that you can be kept in touch on future events, and also you're able to access the slides, the recording. I think there's someone who needs to mute. Okay. So yes, feel free to join. Apologies. Okay. So feel free to join us, join the WhatsApp broadcast, and you'll be able to listen in on future activities. For those asking for the slides and Lydia's contacts, we'll also be able to share with this with you. We will also share the recording. Other than that, asante sana for joining us today. It has been such a pleasure, and we look forward to seeing you in the next roundtable.